Hi everybody, Doug Fields here with another 5-minute youth ministry, and I have the queen of youth ministry. Well, we call Katie on the podcast the queen of youth ministry. But Megan Hutchinson is a longtime youth worker. Her and I worked on staff together. We wrote books together. She's a big shot author. She's a speaker for youth specialties. Anyway, her sweet spot is hurting kids. So we got 5 minutes.
Not as in like hurting kids. Like,
no,
bam,
right. Yeah. She's a mom and a wife and a great youth worker, but nobody is as good that I've ever worked with is as good with hurting kids as Megan. So let's talk hurting kids. The average youth ministry.
Well,
do they have hurting kids?
I would say that they do, yes. In fact, Doug and I have been talking about this for years because at Saddleback, where we used to both work, we just realized there are, how many kids are piling in here every single weekend that there's not a space or a place for them to really intentionally talk about their pain. So we said, let's figure out what we can do to help them, and we did with the curriculum that we came up with. But also, it was kind of an aha, I think even in our own community, like we knew that there were some hurting, but they came pouring out in ways that we were both surprised.
Yeah, there's kind of a principle that we learned that when you talk about hurts, all of a sudden you're reaching into people's hearts and they triggered their hurts.
Yeah.
But you're really good at, we kind of joke that I would talk to a kid and realize that he's hurting and I'd be like, okay, I'm delegate to Megan. And Megan would go over.
No, it was like this. Hey, Megan, hurting kid, right side, go handle it. That's really how it works.
That's really pretty true. But I could talk to a kid for 5 minutes and they would be like, oh, Doug's nice. He remembered my name. He's cool. We talked about UFC. And then 5 minutes, Megan could have the kid crying and sharing his deepest sin and the hurt and the whole bit. So obviously you're good at that. Let's talk about some principles that all of us can learn from you. Let's talk about empathy.
Right.
Let's talk about seeing the needs. I want you to talk about your own heart for Jesus and how that impacts it. Go.
Okay. Couple things that I'd say about the whole hurting kids thing, and that is that when you're aware of your own hurt in your own life and your own journey, it sure helps to see people more clearly. The lens becomes less fuzzy because you're going, I'm one of you in a different way. We have different struggles and different hurts, and that's true of everybody if they're aware of it. So it's important to know your own story and to look back. That involves looking back. And then I think once you're able to kind of sit in your own story and get whole and healing from that and realize we're all a mess, but we all need help, then you're able to see people a whole lot differently. I was talking to Doug earlier that the Gospels mention the word see over 40 times. How Jesus would see people and then have compassion on them. So the seeing would precede the compassion, and then he would enter in and do some miracle or something crazy. But the compassion followed the seeing first. So I think that as youth workers, if we get better at kind of pausing and seeing people and then entering into their own story, whatever that might be. I mean, we get the student. I'm not sure why you're the student right now, Doug, but you're the student. And we get whatever kind of student there is. I mean, I'm thinking of one named Josh right now at the top of my head who, he didn't look put together, but he sure acted like he was. And I can just remember saying, what'd you do this weekend, Josh? And he goes, well, Megan, I'm a cage fighter. And so I lost my fight in the cage. And I was like, wow, you're a cage fighter. Don't you freak out in the cage? He goes, no, I've been doing it for, 5 years. I love it. And as his story unfolded, I got to ask him questions about his childhood. Like, what would bring someone to be a cage fighter and love it with such passion? So I was really determined to figure out the why behind his story. And I think when we're determined to figure out the why behind someone's story, and we're willing to take time to listen to that, we're gonna be able to lift up the skirt of their life. Bad analogy. We're gonna be able to kind of to unveil the curtains, to lift them up. That's better.
Yeah. Look behind the curtains, get underneath this problem, see below.
Don't lift up the
below
skirt.
The behavior. Yeah, please don't lift up the skirt. And so you learn that at Download Youth Ministry. Say you learn it from Megan.
Right.
That's fine.
Yes.
But okay, we've got 45 seconds left. What about courageous questions? I like your phrase.
Yes,
for that.
You do. Again, with Josh, let me just go with that example. I was able to say, Josh, wow, you're a cage fighter. What gives you, why did you decide to do this? And he kind of went into the story about his childhood, and I said, well, were your parents around very much? Why did you find that you needed to get out of the home so much? And I asked that. It was a courageous question. Yeah. Were your parents, was your mom or your dad, that's the way I wrote it, around very much? He goes, no. And I said, tell me more about that.
Yeah, that's where you're brilliant, and I've learned so much from you, is being able to ask that kind of gutsy, gritty, courageous question that takes people to a deeper level.
Yeah.
One of the things that we stack hands on is that everybody's got a story,
Everybody.
and usually there's a hurt behind that story. And if you
Yes.
can get to that, you can really enter in, bring Jesus into that moment, know that Jesus wants to give kids new opportunities to change and grow and be different the whole bit.
And he wants to use their pain to help other people heal.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. She's the best. Look at her lips. It matches her sweater.
Really?
All right. Yeah, I think so. You look great.
Thanks.
All right. There it is.